right, today I'm going to go over some of the very common problems that I've seen across the board with Project 114. So I'm just going to basically just go over the biggest challenges that should help you finish out the whole project. The other video that I made was just too long. So this is an effort to make it shorter and still convey all the important information. So this is going to be 114. This one deals with a guessing game. So I'm going to set up the interface really quickly. In reality, all we really need is a text box, a button, and a label. Those are the main three components. I know it goes over horizontal arrangements and the name of them, but to just get the basic functionality of this, that's all we need. We need a couple of global variables. One of them is going to be the secret number. The other one is going to be the tries or counts. These are going to be set to 10 tries by default. And this is going to be set to 55 to begin. Then I want to make sure that I do a click on the button, and that's going to gather the information from the text box. And it's going to check if that is the secret number. Before we go through that, we are going to initialize a local variable. We're going to call it user guess. And that's what we're going to tag onto the text box. So every time the button gets clicked, it's going to obtain the information from this text box right here. And that's where we can start doing evaluations. The first one is to check if that number is the same thing as the secret number. So I'm going to get my secret number, which is 55, and I'm going to get the local variable user guess. We have to be very careful about what we're trying to do here in order to make this work. If it is in case that we are going to tell it that they successfully guessed the correct answer. Okay, so let's test it out. Make sure that this is working correctly. So my job here is to guess 55, and 55 should return with the correct one there. So I'm going to type in 55, press the button, this is correct. So already that's a huge success, that's working well. But now what happens if the user types in something that's too low? If I press the button there, nothing happens. I still see correct, which is a little bit of an issue because that's not the correct answer. So we're going to do an else statement in here. I'm going to set the label to not right. Continue to test it with 50. It says not right. So the main goal of this is to get it to go higher or lower depending on what number they chose. I'm going to just increase the font size on this so you guys can see it better as I'm testing it. Good fast way to resize buttons too, and labels, etc. So I don't need an else in here. What I actually need is an else if. And the else if, what it will allow me to do is check to make sure that there's a second situation. And then I'm gonna finalize with an else because there's only one other thing that could happen. So either they get it right, or they're picking too low, or they're picking too high. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that logic together. In this case, the secret number is lower. Oh, sorry, the secret number, I'll keep them all in the same place. The secret number is lower than the user guess. So then I'll say your guess is too high. We'll test it in just a second. I don't want to leave any openings here, as it could be a problem. And of course, the opposite of what that would be too low. And something that you might be wondering is why not do another else if? Because that's the only other case that will happen. It's either the correct number, it's either too high or too low. Okay, test it with 56, too high. So you can start to see that that's working, right? But what if the user enters trash? I get an error. And it does not like it when the first one doesn't really care. It's not equal to that, so it doesn't matter. But this one can only evaluate data type integer or decimals. So because it's not a number, it gets really mad. So I can go into design view and I can set the label to then do numbers only, which is smart. So now I got my numbers only. Now when I try to type in something that's not a number, as you can see on my iPad trying to type in things, it doesn't allow it to. But something that will still break it is if you put a minus sign and evaluate. The minus sign is part of a number, so it will cause problems. So a lot of testing is useful for this. Now to get rid of that error, we're gonna need another if statement. So if they type in the correct thing, if they type in a number, then we're gonna allow this to happen. So if the correct thing happens, this one can actually happen. So I'm gonna go to the math and I'm gonna ask if it's a number, and that's gonna be for user guess. So now this will only allow if this is a number, and it will only allow this to happen. Otherwise, I can put an else of nice little message here telling the user, yeah, what are you doing? Okay. So now if I try to be silly and put a minus on there, it tells me to type in a number. As soon as I type in a number, it actually fixes that problem right away. Too low, 58, too high, 55. Correct. So that's the main functionality that we want to have it do. The next thing is to check how many tries, how to start to decrement that counter. So every time they click it, we want to start setting that tries to itself -1. So we're gonna get the tries, and then -1 from it. This is only for the variable. If you start pressing things, it is decrementing the amount, but it's not really doing much with it. So because we're only decrementing it, so it's going 9876. We have no way to display it. So then I can set the label to, this is where it starts to get messy, only using one label, of course. But I could just join the string of okay. There we go. Guess it's left. And then the amount of tries. Now, why I said that will be complicated is because this is going to override it as soon as it goes through this evaluator. So that's a problem. And if, so it starts to become problematic. And that's why they ask you to have multiple labels so that it doesn't get confusing or complicated. So I'll add another label. And this will be for the tries only. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to change this to label 2, which is the amount of tries that they've done. So see, guess it's left 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, but we can overdrive. We can have unlimited tries because we haven't really programmed that possibility. So then what do we want to do? Another if statement. And we just continue to work with what do we want it to do in case they have enough tries. That's the way I think about it. It just makes it, this is already looking very confusing. If you were to just look at it and copy down the code, it would get really, really confusing. But if you're doing it one step at a time, it becomes easier to figure out. The condition is going to be very similar to the numerical one, where instead I'm going to check the tries, and I'm going to make sure that they have at least one try. Okay. So now if they have tries, they're able to guess. If they don't have any tries, then they're not able to guess. So I'm going to put an else. And in this else, I'll put a loose. I'll just set it up like that out of guesses. If you don't want the too low to show up, you can clear it by setting it to an empty. You can see how slowly you can make this into a very nice looking piece of code here. Clean up the code a little bit, and I want to remove any loose blocks. There we go. So there's the code right there with my two numbers, my tries, everything kind of bound together. This is, of course, just the beginning of developing the whole app, but I think this sets you up at a good space and hopefully is less than the other one. If you have any further questions or any further concerns about the code or how to implement it better or anything at all, be sure to leave something in the comments. All right, until next time, bye.